On June 2nd, Baba led the students of the Hazrat Babajan school to his japti. In simple Marathi, using many examples, the master discoursed to them on different spiritual topics. He then presented some useful gifts to those children who had passed their annual exams. Later that day, the master explained to the mandali about higher and lower spirits. Higher spirits are actually agents of God with powers and certain duties. They have physical forms in order to work in the world according to the directives issued by the perfect masters. Lower spirits are those beings without physical forms whose sanskaras remain to be wiped out. They cannot progress after death until their unfinished sanskaras are worked out. As a consequence, they wander about on the lower astral plane. For this reason, they are a source of harassment to living people. Suppose a man is destined to have a lifespan of 40 years, but he commits suicide when he is 30. Consequently, for the remaining 10-year period of unexpressed sanskaras, his spirit inhabits the lower planes and, at times, is seen by some people as a spirit or ghost. To hold seances or to talk with the dead who have committed suicide is laughable, because such spirits are always among us on this living plane. There are advanced yogis and munis who converse with these ghosts as well as with the spirits of the higher planes. These advanced souls communicate without using a medium. They live on both levels. On June 3rd, while comparing yogis to Sadhgurus, Baba made the following prophetic remarks. Some yogis in India can turn iron into gold, but it is useless because it serves no purpose. Even these powerful yogis have to pass through ages of cycles of births and deaths to attain the state of a Sadhguru. The powers of the Sadhguru are unlimited, yet he rarely uses them. The Sadhguru can even bring entire new worlds into being. So great are his powers. Compared with that, what is turning iron into gold? The perfect masters and other spiritual authorities are now working on a terrible problem. The world is threatened with a war of great magnitude, a war never before seen or known of in the past, in which every nation on earth will be involved. The struggle will be for gold, but the final large-scale struggle will bring a good result. A great prophet will come forward with his divine message. Then hundreds of thousands of people will throw themselves at his feet, listen to him, and study his teachings. The time will come, mark my words. During this time at Meherabad, Pindu was working as a nurse and supervisor in the hospital, and Padre was dispensing the medicines for the doctor. Both were fully occupied in these labors. Baba would be very exacting when he observed their work and would daily find some fault with them. On 3rd June, both of them became exasperated with his criticisms. Baba listened to them and then advised them. Be like a football, which never cries out or complains when kicked. Its fortune is to receive kicks, and the force and height of its kicks are its beauty. You too should try to reach the level of accepting and remaining humble and unaffected by kicks, criticism. My kicks will raise you up high, higher, infinitely higher and beyond. The greater the force of the kick to the football, the higher it flies. Similarly, you will also rise high above the world. Baba then instructed Padre, continue giving medicines to the sufferers, and I will go on blessing you. From that day on, Padre's treatment carried with it Baba's blessings.
Footnote says some years later, Padre began treating patients with homeopathic remedies and was successful frequently in curing seemingly incurable cases.
At this time, Baba intimated to both the men and women Mandali that from 15 June, he would keep silence and communicate with them only by written notes and through gestures. The master made detailed inquiries about the dispensary, the hospital, its patients, the school, the children, and each of the Mandali, cautioning all to be particular in discharging their respective duties. On 4th June 1925, he declared, I will observe silence for 1 year. I will not speak to anyone, but all should hold fast to my feet. Those who stick with me until the end will be greatly benefited and highly rewarded. To elucidate this point, Baba cited instances of well-known devotees and disciples who never quit or forsook their masters, even under the most adverse conditions and circumstances. He narrated the following story to illustrate his point. A sadhu once took it upon himself to train a certain man in spirituality. But after years of labor, he found no change in the individual. He then began instructing an animal, which he found even more hopeless. But instead of returning to a human, he began educating a tree. This too resulted in failure. His last attempt was to teach a stone. But a stone is, after all, only a stone, whether it is a rock high in the Himalayas or a precious diamond on one's finger. And as much as he tried, the sadhu failed to bring about any change in the consciousness of the stone. As a last resort, the sadhu picked up the stone and smashed it down on his own head, breaking his skull and killing himself. But by this action, the stone instantly gained knowledge, realization. Baba ended by saying, if you wish to stick to your master, then become like a stone and remain like that with the master. Baba departed for Bombay the same day. He returned to Meherabad after 1 week, bringing more cloth that was to be used to make exercise uniforms for the children, school children. On 13th June, an event took place at Mehrabad, which caused Baba to postpone his silence. Many birds had built their nests in the post office building, and there were also termites in the roof. Gulmai was standing on a table cleaning the ceiling with a broom, and while extending, she fell down and severely sprained her ankle. Baba himself applied compresses to her swollen leg and changed the bandage daily. Afterward, he declared that he was postponing his silence until Gulmai was well enough to walk. On Thursday, 18th June, 1925, Baba again mentioned his upcoming silence. Within a few days, I will begin keeping silence. All of you remember to hold fast to me, no matter what. On Thursdays, Baba and the Mandali had begun visiting Kaka Shahane's house, the family quarters in Arangawan, for afternoon tea. Here the men would enjoy fine tea with milk for a change and snacks.
Okay, thank you, Rosalie. Pia, would you like to read?
Okay. While having the silence begins, while having tea at the Shahanes on 18th June, Baba remarked, one should think twice before inviting a fakir to his home. A perfect fakir, perfect master, would never harm his followers, but it is difficult to satisfy an advanced soul. Once a fakir is invited, nothing should be refused to him. So it is better to leave him alone. Let him stay where he is. To illustrate this point, Baba told this tale. Once a man invited a fakir as well as hundreds of other guests to his home. But the fakir arrived much earlier than the appointed time and demanded his meal. Food was brought for him, but he kept asking for more and more, and soon all the vessels were emptied. The host was experienced with holy men and knew he had made a mistake in inviting the fakir. But to refuse him more food would have been a greater mistake. So the food he had prepared for the other 500 guests were given to the fakir. Finally, the fakir left contented and blessed the host for his gesture. However, the host regretted having called such a personality to his house and running the risk of being cursed. Baba went to Pune by the evening train with Jamshed and a few others. An Englishman named Louis Nell had met Baba in Pune during December 1923 and had requested to stay at his ashram. Baba told, is that how you pronounce it, Nels? Okay.
I think it's Nelms or Nems.
Okay. Baba told Nems that he would be sent for at the opportune time. On Friday, 19 June 1925, Baba held darshan in Pune and Nems again came to meet him. During this occasion, Nems reiterated his desire to stay with Baba, and this time Baba agreed. Baba and the men returned to Meherabad late the same night, and Nems came the following morning. He was the first Christian to join Baba's Mandali. Nems, 29, was born and grew up in Bombay. He was from an upstanding family. His father was a British police inspector and had met and married his English wife, a nurse in Bombay. They had 5 children. Louis was the youngest. Nems was working as a measurer at the Bombay Chamber of Commerce when he married Ellen Nolan in Bombay in 1919.
Footnote. A measurer was an official who verified weights and measurements of cargo for customs purposes.
They resided in Baikula and had 2 children. Nems was extraordinarily good-natured and had a great love for spirituality. As a young man, before ever seeing Baba or hearing his name, he had had a vision of the Master once while in a cathedral. While praying, he looked up at Jesus Christ's picture and saw Meher Baba's face before him. After meeting Baba for the first time at Sadashiv's house in Pune, Nems vividly recalled the vision which he had experienced years before. Upon his arrival at Mehrabad, Nems lived with the Mandli and mingled with them quite naturally. Bendu was especially fond of him. Although British in his habits, Nems would eat the same food the Mandli ate and was always prepared to do any work. Against the Mandli's advice, he would insist on doing the heavy work of carrying water from the well, balancing the containers over his shoulders on a long bamboo pole. In those days, the Mandli had blankets made of two gunny sacks sewn together like a sleeping bag, and each had only this covering at night. Nems too accepted this meager protection and did not wish for anything more. He was enthusiastic about the ascetic austerity, and easily became vegetarian, eating bhakri and drinking milkless tea like the other Mandali. At, at times, Vishwanath, the Hindu priest, would be lax in performing his puja at the fixed morning and evening times of worship at the temple. On 20th June, he was sternly reprimanded by Baba to be careful to strictly observe the schedule that Baba had fixed. The master then gave the priest a brief but poignant explanation. Although the face may be handsome and beautiful above, there is always that dirty rectum below, but one who has to tolerate both good and bad, because both are part of the same body. The same is the case with me. I have to care for all types of people because all belong to me. It has been well said by a poet. You are the cow, you are the butcher, you are the grocer, and you are the eater. If there is a boil festering on our arm, we have to make an incision to heal it. But we won't cut off your whole arm to remove the boil, nor do we allow the boil to become infected. We make a small cut in your arm, although, for a time, the boil forms part of your flesh. Understand that I have therefore reprimanded you for your own good. Maruti Patel, the village headman, invited Baba and the Mandali to come to his house in Arangaon for lunch on Sunday, 21st June 1925. He had made separate arrangements for them inside and had spread a carpet in his yard for the lower caste Harijans of the village. Baba then arrived. When Baba arrived, he sat with the Harijans outside and ate his food with them, sternly remarking, "Who is an outcast? He who has no love for God in his heart." After the meal, the Harijans requested that Baba visit their dharamshala, which was being repaired. They informed him that due to insufficient funds, they could not finish the repair work, and Baba promised to help them. To their happy surprise, he graciously visited not only the dharamshala, but he went to the house of each one of the untouchables as well. On occasion, Baba would walk to Arangaon, and the villagers were greatly impressed when he visited their poor homes. The parents of some of the Harijan school children were so extremely impoverished that the master arranged to provide grain for them each month. On 23rd June, two students began fighting, and one struck the other with a chalk slate, blooding his nose. Both were brought to Baba, who heard their grievances. Witnesses claimed that one lad was at fault. Baba then asked the Mandli and the children what punishment should be given to the culprit. It was suggested that he should either be made to stand for an hour in front of the school or he should be scolded by the master. After hearing the suggestions, Baba asked the boy if he was guilty. He nodded yes. Baba asked, "What punishment should be given to you?" The scared boy remained quiet, so Baba ordered him to touch the feet of every student. Baba warned him that he would be dismissed from the school if he repeated his actions. Late that night, a boy named Raghunath Bhau Goswami, who was suffering from typhoid, expired. Baba had often visited the hospital to comfort the youth, and he had told his parents, "If Raghunath dies here at my ashram, he will attain freedom. In spite of his external suffering, internally he is quite peaceful and contented." Pendu and Dr. Karkar had also nursed him conscientiously. The boy was cremated the next day, and Baba and the Mandali attended the service. Afterwards, Padri and Pendu thoroughly disinfected the dispensary and hospital under Baba's supervision. On 25th June, games and contests were held in the morning and again in the late afternoon, and Rustam was appointed as sports director and referee. The events included a sack race, a donkey racing, high jump, cycle racing, and tug of war.
All right, thank you, Peter. Meher, would you like to read?
Yes, Marvin, sure. Thank you. The silence begins. Jai Baba. Baba also participated in the fun by riding bucking donkey and was the first to reach the winning post. The tug of war contest, which was played between the Aragon Harijan children and the Maratha villagers, provided amusement to all. 2 days later, Rustam and Arjun distributed prize to the winners and to the boys who passed the exams. The master, Gadi Diwan, was brought to a room in a school that had been decorated with flowers. The ceremonies began with a short speech by Vishnu, followed by the ghazal singing of Abdur Rahman Rustam handed out the awards. He first presented the prize for the winning the donkey race by garlanding Baba as the winner. During the race, a very funny incident had occurred. Gustaji had fallen off the donkey. He was riding, but when he remounted the animal, it refused to budge. Quite upset by the donkey's stubbornness, Gustaji swore it, but it still would. Gustaji swore at it, but it still would not move. He abused of stubborn ass, made many laugh uproariously. I don't know how to say it.
Uproariously.
Thank you. Baba in turn gave a prize to Rustam for the winning the long distance race. Rustam then handed over the rest of the prizes and the functions ended with the serving of tea and sweets. On Friday, 26 June 1925, Baba declared that he would observe silence from the 10th of July. A sign about his statement was painted and erect at the entrance of Meherabad. Notices were printed and mailed announcing that Meher Baba would not speak to anyone for 1 year. It was also intimated through the notice that from the 1st of July, the master would not give darshan to any outsiders for a few weeks. Baba wanted to have sufficient time to give final instructions to the men and women at Meherabad about their stay and duties. During a discussion of the upcoming year of silence, one person expressed the concern that Baba, on becoming upset with any person, might let a few words slip from his mouth. It was even suggested that Baba tie a handkerchief around his mouth to prevent this. But Baba assured everyone present that he started to keep silence. He would not lose control of his temper or utter a word thereafter. Baba concluded the meeting by singing the lines, "As soon as I became conscious of Sham Sundar, the beauty of Krishna, a mustard seed bloomed before my eyes. Oh, its yellow flowers, what I saw is incredible. Its seeds moved the mountain when it flowered before my eyes." Afterwards, Baba explained the poem, "The blossoming of the mustard seed represents God realization. The seed itself represents the soul. Hence, when the seed moved the mountain, I became divinely conscious, and simultaneously the soul engulfed the mountain of my ego. The beauty of the Lord is inferible, yet it is seen, it is experienced." During 1925, Jagannath Gangaram Jakal, 36, whom everyone called Anna, elder brother, joined the Mandali. Anna was originally from Sholapur, where his family owned a printing press and published a newspaper. But they also had a property in Ahmednagar. Anna's duty was to do the marketing for the Mehrabad community, riding back and forth each day on his cycle to Ahmednagar. On 28 June, he had not returned from the market by midnight. Concerned, Baba and the Mandali set out to look for him. And on the way, Maruti Patil found a notebook which belonged to Anna. It turned out that thieves had surrounded Anna on his way back to Mehrabad and robbed him of everything he had bought. He had been severely beaten and had returned to his house in Ahmednagar. When Baba and the men reached Anna's home, they found him lying in bed with bandages wrapped around his head. Baba asked, "What happened?" In a daze, Anna stammered, "Baba, 104, 104. Baba repeated the question 2 or 3 times, but the only thing Anna would say was, "Baba, 104. What Anna meant was that the temperature was 104. Baba called for a doctor and arranged for his treatment. After he recovered, Baba would recount with humor Anna's feverish utterance and subsequently nicknamed him Anna 104. Although it had been announced by mail that no outsiders should come to Mehrabad after 1st July, a group of Parsi politicians came to see Meher Baba on Thursday, 2nd July. After discussing with them the political and spiritual situation of India, the master discoursed about the mind and body. This was to be the last record verbal discourses. Human excrement is totally useless. Only swine eat it. Similarly, when the flesh is cut from carcasses, only bones remain, and these are thrown to the dogs. Man's mind is like flesh, and this body is like the bones. A person eats flesh, meat, and digests it, which means he uses it, but the bones are inedible
Edible.
and,
Inedible.
and of no use. So he gives them to dogs who can chew and utilize them.
Okay, thank you, Meher. Ralph, would you like to read now?
Yeah, Marvin, I'm in and out of the room, but I'm in right now. I'll read a paragraph or two. A human being must care for his mind, which is like the meat. He should use his mind by training it to flow into the proper channels. A person has to let go of his physical body sometime, for it cannot be preserved. To illustrate this, suppose one's finger is chopped off or a leg is crippled. He should not worry or weep over it because he knows that his whole physical body has to be discarded one day. But a human being should be most careful about his mind, which is of the utmost use to him. The mind should be directed toward proper spheres. It should be kept in check and utilized. If this body, which a person has to discard one day, is used for anything, it should be used in the service of the three causes: God, the Master, and our fellow man. The body may become weary and worn out. It may bring one suffering. It may bring one suffering, but so what? Man, as a physical being, is destined to suffer. So long as the body is vibrant, active, and under one's control, man can be said to have used it for a good cause by directing his energies in any good or noble work. On 4th July 1925, hand mills for grinding grain were obtained and fixed in a separate room, and the men began grinding their own millet for the bakris that were served for their evening meal. Baba named the following men to work the mills at fixed times each morning from 7 to 9 a.m. They were Arjun, Bapu Brahman, Bapu Ghile, Bairamji, Maruti Patel, and Mohan Shahe, Kaka's son. Nelums, Eric Shah Irani, a young man from Bombay, Vishnu, and Rustam. Baba fixed his own time for working at the mill and began doing it at first for 1 hour and then for 2 hours each morning. How's that?
Okay, Ralph, want to stop here?
That's fine. If what suits yourself.
You want to
Oh,
just
we
finish
just
the
got
page?
a little bit further to go to the end of
Yeah,
the
why don't you
page.
finish the page?
Okay. One day when Baba was grinding the hand mill, a man came for his darshan. Baba told him, I am grinding jawar, millet, and if you want my darshan, you will have to share in my work. Taken aback, the man replied, Great one, I have come for your darshan, not for grinding grain. Baba smilingly retorted, what is the use of having the darshan of a simple grinder of grain. I grind completely those who come for my darshan. Without such grinding, how can you expect to have darshan? You are not in the least willing to do as I say. So how can I give you darshan? Jai Baba.
Well, Rainey, would you like to pick up here? Oh, you might not be available. Are you? Oh, there you are.
Want me to read?
The silence begins. The man did not follow the meaning of his words and said, "Now that I've seen you, Baba, I will take your leave. Namaskar, farewell." "All right, take darshan," Baba said. The man put his head on the master's feet and went away. Afterward, Baba told the Mandali, "That man has bowed to his desires and expectations, not to me. Had he carried out my wish today, I would have given him my real darshan. I was in that mood, and he would have assuredly derived great benefit had he listened to me." On 8th July, Baba convened a meeting of the men and for an hour instructed each person about their duties during the coming year of silence. A few close ones like Chanji, Naval, and Barsop had come from Bombay to consult with him regarding certain work. On 9 July, final decisions were made in all matters. Besides the verbal directions, general instructions were written down and posted at the Hazrat Babajan school. Baramji was appointed the head superintendent and Rustam was named vice superintendent. Together they were to supervise the management of Meherabad. Arjun was made the school superintendent and was also given the duty of improving the students' conduct in class. Gustaji was placed in charge of the storerooms that supplied food and other essentials for the Meherabad populace. Padri's duty was to supervise the work in the hospital and dispensary. Only these 5 men were allowed to speak to Meher Baba at a specified time each day in regard to their assigned duties. All others were prohibited from talking to him. The master had said that the other Mandali could speak to him only when he expressed a desire through gestures or in writing to communicate with him. He was to work the flour mills 2 hours daily, and those who were doing this work with him were also not allowed to speak with him. Later in the afternoon, the master met with the parents of the children at Hazrat Babajan school and explained about his upcoming year of silence. Baba impressed upon them the spiritual significance of allowing their children to remain in the school during this period. They in turn promised not to remove their children from the school during the next year under any circumstances. Baba then gathered the men Mandali and spoke to them at length about the future. They listened attentively since these would be his last utterances for 1 year. They knew that this would be the last opportunity to hear the master's voice again for a long time. Baba's last verbal discussion with his Mandali covered 3 topics. First, Baba's general advice to all was, you have to live for others and use your bodies for the benefit of others. Then he explained that one reason for him no longer speaking concerned Babajan. I must keep silent for some excessive spiritual work that will result when Babajan drops her body in the near future.
Sidebar says, on 13 July 1925, a letter was received from Ramju in Pune, stating that a Tonga in which Babajan was riding had been stopped by the police and then released. Babajan had remarked, we would like to go for an outing. I am making inquiries. Why the police stopped the Tonga is not known.
Then he explained, lastly, he explained that his self-imposed silence also related to the future of the world. There will be religious, communal hostilities, riots, worldwide wars, and natural disasters. These events will cause the shedding of blood in millions of people throughout the world in general and throughout India in particular. But thereafter, peace and brotherhood will come back into the world. Baba turned to Gulmai, one of the few women present, and added, "There will be another war. It will be much more destructive and extensive than the one before. Rivers of blood will flow. I will dip my kerchief in that river of blood and tie it around my head. Not until the world cries out for God will I give up my silence." The teacher, Pandoba, then pleaded with Baba that if he became silent, people would no longer have the opportunity to hear what he had to declare, and the world would be deprived of his teachings. Baba replied, "I have come not to teach, but to awaken." And these were to be the last words to anyone outside of his circle, and they contained the essence of Meher Baba's divine mission in the world. During the evening of the 9th of July, Baba walked to the women's quarters at the post office building to convey his final instructions to them. "Now listen to my last words, because from tomorrow I will keep silence for 1 year. Attend to your duties with love and fulfill them with all your heart. Cook for the children at the school as if they were your own. I have much work to do for the world. When my work is done, I shall speak." Baba left them at 8 o'clock in the evening and, accompanied by Masaji, went to visit the Mandali's quarters. He told them, "I'm going to be silent from tomorrow for 1 year. All of you take care of everything at Meherabad as usual and take care of your health. Whenever you go out during the night, always carry a lantern with you. Always beware of snakes. I will save you from every calamity under the sun, but I won't help you if you are bitten by a snake, so be careful. Keep on doing your work. I have given you all of your duties. Continue doing them, every one of you. There will be no hitch in the work. Although I will be silent, everything at Meherabad will run smoothly. You don't have to worry. I have my own reasons for keeping silence. I must do it. Stick to your jobs and do as I instruct you. Don't deviate from the work and don't worry about it. If you obey me, nothing will be difficult." It was 8:30 when he concluded, "I am going to the Jopti now. All of you go to bed." There were about 20 men around him. A few men made some comments, and within a few minutes, the group dispersed. The men began unrolling their bedding, and Padri went to urinate. He had only gone a few steps when he spotted a 3-foot-long cobra. Lifting his lantern, he shouted, "Snake! Snake!" The other men came running with bamboo staffs, which were kept for such incidents. There was shouting and the whacking of staffs as the snake was being killed. Baba heard the commotion and came out of his room. "What is all the noise about?" he asked. "Baba, we have killed a snake." "Who saw it?" "I did," Padri reported. "Were you carrying a lantern?" Padri nodded yes, and Baba was pleased that he had done so. Padri then handed him a staff, and Baba crushed the head of the cobra. He ordered Padri to wash his hands several times after burying the snake. Then he repeated, "I am warning you all again. Be careful of snakes. Always carry a lantern and take care. Now I want everyone to go to sleep." Meher Baba then walked over to the women's quarters and spoke with them briefly. How fortunate you are that you have heard my voice so many times today. This incident with the snake took place to allow you to hear me speak for the final time. He then departed and retired for the night as Masaji kept watch.
All right, are we up to the next reader, I think? Elizabeth has joined us. Would you like to read, Elizabeth?
Sure, I can read. That was very interesting about the snake. Okay, the silence begins. Mayor Baba came out of his jogpi as usual at 5 o'clock in the morning of Friday, 10th July, 1925. After a bath, he went to the Mandali's quarters. Everyone thought that Baba would not make his usual inquiries, but to their surprise, the master questioned the Mandali, the teachers and children about their health, sleep, and the food for the day, all in writing. Thus, from that day onward, in spite of his silence, Mayor Baba was found to be quite alert to and mindful of all matters, especially regarding the duties of the two superintendents of the property, Baramji and Rustam. From that day on, for several months, Baba had a new companion. Constantly with him was a young boy named Bal, to whom he had taken a liking. Bal, an Arangan village boy, would accompany the master around Mehrabad with a pencil and paper or chalk and slate so that Baba could convey whatever he wished. Baba's nature was so outgoing and voluble that he often spontaneously broke out into song or poetry. Hence, many of the Mandali doubted he would be able to keep silence for a full year. But as the days passed, they were greatly impressed to observe that the master never once spoke and remained silent in all circumstances, showing that he was in perfect control of himself. Although he would still participate in the bhajan programs, Baba's beautiful voice no longer was heard. Yet his hands would play a drum or finger cymbals as accompaniment to the singers. If Baba were to get angry at any of the Mandali for their negligence, he would take his slate and whack it on their biceps or thigh. And they dared not say a word of protest or question why. There were 3 slates, and one day, in a moment of irritation, Baba flung all 3 at someone. Eric Shaw, who was Baba's orderly at the time, took the major share of the sudden raps. Sorry, Baba flung all 3 at someone. Eric Shaw, who was Baba's orderly at the time, took the major share of the sudden raps. Mayor Baba had observed silence 4 times before. But the silence of 10th July 1925 was to last until the end. He never uttered another word for the rest of his life. Although Baba was observing silence, it did not seem to those around him that he was silent at all, nor did it interfere with his work. On the contrary, there was an increased intensity in Baba's daily activities at Mehrabad. Baba became even more dynamic in his everyday routine in the ashram. He would keep those around him fully concentrated on him by writing his instructions, wishes, and discourses swiftly and emphatically across the slate. The Mandali were kept busy sweeping and cleaning Baba's jodhpi and supervising the functioning of the school and hospital. They were responsible for the care of the children as well, bathing them and even washing their clothes, because the Hindu Dhobi laundryman refused to wash the clothes of even the children of untouchables. Baba gave the Mandali new instructions daily, pointing out and correcting their mistakes, thus training them in a strict manner for his own special work as his circle members and closest disciples. During the day, he was busy grinding grain and overseeing all the activities at Meribah. The master gave individual attention to every child in the school, and on occasion he would praise, embrace, or even scold a child to correct him or urge him to study. Witnessing this divine drama of God living as man, age felt blessed. The tears and confusion of age began to vanish as mankind's suffering found solace in the God-man's compassion. Now recognized by many people as the great saint Sri Sadguru Meher Baba, unending love poured out of his being. The avatar diffused the rays of his light, and by his light, his silence began speaking. The hearts of his lovers were awakened by the echo of his silence, enabling them to hear more of the beloved song. On the 13th of July, 3 days after his silence began, Baba commenced a new activity. He announced that he was writing a book. After his morning bath at 5 a.m., he would write in the Jodhpi from about 6 o'clock until 8:30, when he would leave the room for his other duties. He was to write the book mostly in English, with a few Gujarati and Persian phrases at various places in Meribah, completing it several months later. At times, Baba suffered with high fever, but he was quite diligent about his writing, as he was in all his activities. On one occasion, he urged the Mandali, "For a year or two, exert yourselves to the utmost. The fruit of benediction is awaiting the result of your labor of love."
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth.
Uh-huh.
I will read now. Another day, Baba rhymed in English on his slate. It is most difficult to keep my mind, not to talk through the tongue. I want to speak, 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 and yet I remain dumb. During the afternoon of Thursday, 16 July, Baba composed this short poem. The beggar without his hut, the king without his palace. Today, market, I have neither one of these to face. Now tell me, what should I do in this case? At the time of the Pune hut, Baba had spoken of the Maratha king, Shivaji, and hinted that Shivaji was one of his minor incarnations. He repeated something similar at 5:30 p.m. at Kaka Shahani's that day, when he wrote on his slate and swore it was true. Quote, although European historians paint Shivaji in a different light, there was no warrior so brave, so sincere, so clever, so gentle, or so pure. He was a perfect devotee and a true disciple of his spiritual master, Swami Ramdas. It is the same Shivaji that is now present in this form to perform a great part in the tremendous spiritual outburst that is meant to occur in the near future. Then Baba remarked, I was present at the time of Jesus too, but that is another matter. It is a secret, but a part of it I have thus revealed. In reference to Shivaji, Arjun asked, are the men of that time present here? Baba nodded, and then asking for a slate, he wrote, although many were with him, about 24 played a key role at that time. 10 out of these 24 will once again, within 2 years, be the instruments of great spiritual workings in the world. Afzal Khan, who was killed by Shivaji, will assume the lion's share of the work. One foreigner at that time played a key role too, and he likewise will be one of the most prominent members of Shivaji's circle. Shivaji has now realized truth, and through him, at the appointed time, in the near future, his companions will also realize they played a powerful part in the scheme. Baba concluded, Don't think about it. Let it go. It is all a mystery. But the knowers will know within 2 years from this date. The next day, Baba wrote another cryptic remark. The secret will be out in the year 1927, when at a touch, again the blind will be given sight and the dead will be raised with a breath. Closely inspecting the drinking water one day, Baba found mosquito larvae floating inside. He was annoyed by this lack of care and ordered the earthen pots to be thoroughly cleaned every day and filled only after the water was filtered through a cloth. He also directed that the pots be kept covered at all times. He again warned the Mandalay to look after their health and take immediate treatment at the slightest complaint. Serious cases were to be sent to the civil hospital in Ahmednagar. On 22 July, Baba explained about divine sight. Suppose 25,000 people are sitting here and all have the same sight and the same object to look at, a ball. Now take the sight to be God's, which means that the seer through 25,000 pairs of eyes is one. Put before every pair of eyes different colored glasses, and in front of all these glasses put a ball. The sight out of every eye is one, and the ball that all see is also one. But those with red colored glasses see the ball as red. Those with yellow glasses see it as yellow. Those with white glasses see it as white. And in this way, everyone sees a different colored ball. The sight is one and the ball is one, but for 25,000 people, the ball has a variety of colors.
We can't hear you, Marvin.
Did you hear the last sentence? And in this way, everyone sees a different colored ball?
That sentence, yes. But then there was a bleep and then your audio dropped.
My audio probably went out for a moment. Yeah. The sight is one and the ball is one. But to 25,000 people, the ball has a variety of colors. This varying experience is because of the different glasses. All these different colors are different minds, and the different glasses are different bodies. Through the medium of various colors and glasses, the seer sees the ball. Thus, there is the seer, or God, the color, or mind, and the glasses, the bodies. God is only one. The ball, illusion, is also only one. But God experiences this illusion through all the various minds and in a variety of ways. You know that all thoughts are different, feelings are different, and experiences of misery and happiness are different. The reason for it is that all have different minds. Although the thoughts, experiences, minds, and bodies of all are different, the one having this experience is one as is the ball or illusion, through which the one God experiences himself in various ways, through innumerable bodies and minds. That which he sees is not the color nor the glasses. It is through the colors and glasses that the seer sees the ball. God, who has experienced all this, is not the mind, but he sees illusion through the medium of minds and bodies. The next day, Baba visited Chahani's house and explained about freedom, writing out this story. A parrot was free from birth and could fly from one tree to another. It could eat the fruit it fancied, and after eating in Ahmednagar, it would fly as far as Bombay to let loose its droppings. Although free from birth, it had no idea what freedom was. It always asked, "What is freedom?" and cried out, "Free me, free me." Pointing to his brother Bahram, Baba continued, "A philosopher such as Bahram told it, brother, you are already free." But the parrot had no idea of its freedom, and so Bahram said, "All right, I will show you what freedom is. First come to me and submit yourself to my care." The parrot was intelligent, so he flew to Bahram and said, "I am now in your hands. You can wring my neck or you can give me the experience of freedom." However, Bahram put the bird in a cage. In a few days, the parrot found it could not fly or eat the fruit it liked, nor could it sit in its favorite tree. It was shut up, locked in a cage. The parrot thought, I used to be free. At that moment, it had the experience of freedom which it had lacked before. It knew freedom only when it had become imprisoned. In a similar manner, every soul is God and free. But since one was free from the very beginning, one has no idea of the soul's freedom. To have it, one should allow oneself to be caught by a Sadguru. One should give one's neck into the Sadguru's hands so that he may keep one locked up under his orders and discipline and give the experience of the soul's real freedom. That morning, Baba had become annoyed with his young attendant, Baal, and appointed Louis Nelms to take his place for the day. This was a ruse on the master's part. Nelms' health had weakened during the month he had been staying at Meherbad because of the austere diet. In addition, for the past several days, Nelms had been suffering from a septic wound on his leg and had been receiving treatment in the hospital. During the next 3 days, Nelms' condition worsened. Baba himself complained of a headache and had a high fever. On the night of 26 July, Nelms too had a high fever. When Baba observed him, he remarked, Nelms will be free of all pain by tomorrow morning. Endo and Padre nursed him the whole night, but Nelms expired the next morning and, true to Baba's words, was relieved of all suffering. Baba had become so annoyed with Baal and chose Nelms to serve in his place so that Nelms would have the opportunity to be by Baba's side continually near the end of his life. As age noted, the Master is God and eternal love in human form. Can anyone fathom the depth of his compassion? After the police and the civil surgeon were summoned, Rustam brought a coffin. The Nelms' body was taken in a truck to the Christian cemetery near Bingar, where his final rites were performed. A few of the men Mandali attended the funeral. The official cause of death was listed as blood poisoning. Nelms was buried in an unmarked grave. No stone was placed on his grave. It was simply numbered HH6 in the cemetery's record. Meanwhile, Baba fasted the whole day and did not even drink water. He attended to his usual chores, which included cleaning the jyoti and sweeping it and the veranda. When the Mandali returned in the evening, Baba remarked, although Nelms has left his physical body, his mind is still alive. Very soon this mind will take another suitable gross form, and he will definitely come in my contact again. The following is a wonderful example of one of the ways that Meher Baba works. It illustrates how the master would sometimes encourage the very thing he wished to do away with. In such a way, he made the Mandali experience for themselves the uselessness of certain religious habits and customs, causing them to automatically cease their former ways. People make a fanfare of holidays with the name of religion, but they forget its essence. To do away with such outward display, in the early days at Meherbad, Baba encouraged the Hindus among his Mandali to observe their religious days with much pomp and enthusiasm. It's naturally disturbed the Muslim and Zoroastrian Mandali. Baba wished to create a situation whereby the Mandali themselves would distinguish between the real and the artificial, the spiritual and the ceremonial. On Wednesday, 29 July 1925, Baba instructed Arjun to arrange for a 7th-day celebration of Lord Krishna's birthday. That morning,
Sorry, we
Can't hear you.
All right, well, I was going to stop at the end of this paragraph. Why don't Rosalie take over from here?
Okay.
Start on Wednesday.
On Wednesday. Oh, you mean not now?
Marvin, I sent you a text.
Marvin.
I'm going to be out of the room mostly, so just skip me for reading, please. And I'll
Okay.
mute my
Okay.
On Wednesday, 29th July 1925, Baba instructed Arjun to arrange for a 7-day celebration of Lord Krishna's birthday. That morning, Rustam secretly called a meeting between the Parsi and the Irani Mandali, who complained that Baba was siding with the Hindus in celebrating their religious festivals, while he usually canceled their own Zoroastrian holidays. Baba was very upset when he found out about the meeting and called all the men before him, chastising them severely. He wrote on his slate, "The first thing is that you should not have thought of holding a meeting without me. It was not my order. The second thing is that it was my order to celebrate the festival for a week. No one pays any attention to my orders. Why didn't you think of it in that way? Celebrating the festival has importance only because of my order, not because it is a Hindu or any other religious festival. When you begin quarreling over why celebrate their festival and not ours, it is better that I retire to the mountains to rest, rather than stay among such narrow-minded, duality-conscious persons. You all may have outwardly given up Shariat to a certain extent, but not inwardly. Had I known that you members of my Mandali only wanted to follow the Shariat, I would have allowed you to observe your religious festivals. I had thought that your intellects had overcome this childish attitude. My God. I was arranging these celebrations for the benefit of the children who are here, as most of them are Hindus. I thought it would be enjoyable for them to rejoice, dance, and sing bhajans. I thought that for them, we should have this observance of outward religious display. But you men, you should have the gnosis, divine knowledge, and inner experience. That is why I give you discourses full of inner secrets. But it is good that you have shown me where I was wrong. I intended outward rejoicing for them and God realization for you. But you complain. Why theirs and not ours? Do they ever question why you and not they are being made worthy of my blessings? For them it was bones, for you it was flesh. But now you have opened my eyes. From now on, I will stop all outward celebrations and also stop giving discourses. Do you agree? You say that everyone should be on equal footing. All right. For them, no festivals. For you, no God realization. How do you like that equality? If you are convinced that I know more than you, why try to teach me? What right had Rustam to call a meeting to protest my order? Think about this for a minute. I order you to do something, and after meeting together, you pass your order and send a message to me through Baramji claiming I should cancel my order. I need a page. Is this proper? Wanting to do things according to your will and not mine is the way of the world. But it is not your fault. Very, very few surrender. I wanted outward entertainment for the children and self-realization for you. Christ did the same thing. To the masses, he declared that God was above in heaven. To his outer circle, Christ declared that he was God. But to his inner circle, he disclosed that they were God. Each man asked for Baba's forgiveness. It was natural for the Mandali to feel as they did. But as a result of Baba's work, he freed his close ones from the sanskaric impressions of mechanically observing religious holidays. He made them keenly aware that they had to sever all bindings, religious and communal. They were being freed to worship the only one, and worshiping him means burning in fire. He is light, and his real worship means to become ash. Baba was awakening the desire for this type of worship in the Mandali through the medium of these conflicts among themselves. By creating particular situations, Baba gradually awakened the awareness of worshiping only him and following his orders. The master embraced the religion of love. And through his Nazar gaze, it was automatically born in the Mandali. Arjun was granted a 4-day leave and left Meherabad for Pune on the afternoon of 30th July. The next day, Baba's maternal uncle, Feridun Masa, visited Meherabad from his home in Loni, a few hours from Pune.
Dalamasi and Fardu Masa had opened a country liquor store in Loni.
A
Sorry,
wandering
what was the other name? I missed what you said, Marvin. Faradun and who else?
Dalamasi. That's his aunt and uncle.
Uh-huh.
A wandering fakir from Ajmer showed up to take the master's darshan on Sunday, August 1st, 1925. Baba instructed him to observe a complete fast every Sunday, to offer namaz 5 times a day, and to repeat Allah 5,001 times each day. But the fakir quietly left Meherabad the following day without informing anyone. Wherever he had gone before, the fakir was well fed, respected, and given money. But in Meherabad, he found the regime of fasting and the repetition of God's name too strict. It turned out that the man had become a fakir, not to be rid of desires, but to fulfill them. On 3rd August, 2 goats wandered away from Arangawan, and they were hit by a passing freight train. Baba sent the Mandali to investigate the matter, and they returned with one of the goats whose legs had been broken.
Okay, thank you, Rosalie. Rainey, you want to pick it up for at least one page? We're coming to the close here.
It was immediately taken to the Meherabad hospital for treatment. The other goat was dead, and the village Harijans had carted it off with the intention of butchering it and eating the goat mutton. Finding out about this, Baba immediately went to Arangaon with a few of the men and prevailed upon the Harijans to bury the carcass. He made them promise never to eat such dead animals again. Baba then invited the villagers to Meherabad and fed them to their heart's content. In the ashram, the men and women Mandali were permitted to eat only vegetarian food, eggs were not allowed, and even biscuits or cookies baked with eggs were forbidden. This restriction was to continue for almost 25 years.
The food restraint was gradually relaxed after 1949, and those who were non-vegetarians were allowed to eat meat at times.
Every evening from the 5th of August, bhajans were sung by Bikolya, a singer from Pune who had sang at Meherabad a year earlier. During the program on the 7th, it began Excuse me. During the program on the 7th, it began raining heavily. Not finding Behramji among the gathering, Baba asked where he was. On the pretext of going to look for him, Baba began running about in the pouring rain without even taking an umbrella. Baba found Behramji and Ashoba taking shelter by the bathrooms near the well and brought them back with him. All three were soaking wet and had to change their clothes. Baba gave both men quinine tablets, and after putting on Rustam's overcoat, he returned to his seat, and the singing resumed. Rustam was not present for the program, but Baba suddenly leaned over with a concerned look and gestured to Gulmai about her son. Rustam has fallen. He continued listening to the music, and Gulmai paid no special attention to his remark. She did not know that Rustam had left Ahmednagar to attend to some work in another town. The next day, Rustam arrived at Meherabad and declared that his life had been saved by Baba's grace. The previous evening, as he and a group of persons were returning to Ahmednagar in a truck, they were caught in a rainstorm. Rustam was driving. Nearing what he thought was a shallow stream, he decided to drive through it. In the middle, however, the truck got stuck in a deep hole filled with sand. Rustam jumped down to determine the exact depth of the stream, and he was almost overwhelmed by the force of the strong current. Standing in the rushing water, he was losing his balance when he caught hold of the mudguard and cried out to Baba for strength. With the help of other passengers, he was pulled back into the truck. After some time, another truck appeared. With some difficulty, they boarded it and reached home, leaving the stranded truck in the flooded stream. Rustam would have been carried away by the rush of waters had he not caught hold of the mudguard. It was later discovered that this incident happened at the same time when Baba was walking about in the rain looking for Behramji.
Okay, why don't we hold it right there? We'll pick up here at 6:10 next time. I'm getting a pen. I want to mark this.
A mudguard is a fender. I hesitated because I was translating in my head. I've become so American.
Yeah, I was wondering what that was, Rainey. Thank you.
Yeah, mudguard's a fender. I'm bilingual, Elizabeth.
I thought you were trilingual.
Oh,
I thought you were very multilingual.
yeah, well, there's always Frainese, you're right.
Well, you know, Australian is really difficult to understand if you don't